Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, I should say. Apologies with regards to the late start. Just a few technical problems here, a few technical hitches that we had to make sure we got our guest of honor on here. So, uh, apologies for that, but thank you for being patient with us. Um, so just by way of introduction, um, just wanted to say thank you for coming on the call tonight. My name's Jason Beckford, and I'm the head coach and founder of Cayman FC. And as I say, I appreciate your presence today. I know it's Mother's Day as well, so happy Mother's Day to all you mothers. Couldn't do anything without you. But this is the first in a series of webinars that we wanted to do for parents, just to make sure that we're giving you some insights or some valuable insights, should say, and some information that's pertaining to youth development football. So reason that the objective of these webinars are trying to give you as parents and guardians some comprehensive understanding of youth development within professional football academies across the world, and also US university environments. So we want to make sure that you as parents are well informed, you're empowered, and most of all confident in terms of supporting your sons and daughters down the pathway of football, if that's what they want to do. So as this webinar goes on, please feel free to ask questions or write questions in the, if you can see that, you can see the chat. If you want to write questions in the chat, please, and then what we'll do, we'll refer to those questions at the end of the session. But let's start with welcoming Nick Marshall, Liverpool FC Assistant Academy Director. Just want to give Nick just a little bit, give him a little bit of his background. Nick joined Liverpool FC as head of academy football operations in August 2014, and currently serves as the academy assistant academy director. He's a UEFA Pro license coach with over decades of experience, having previously held positions at Barnsley, Leeds United, and the Football Association as a coach mentor, and Nottingham Forest, where he spent 16 years and 12 years as an academy manager. Nick, obviously, in terms of his role, he closely collaborates with his staff, provides essential support required to deliver a world-class program at Liverpool FC. He's responsible for the Premier League's elite player performance plan and works in conjunction with the player recruitment team. So it's I must admit it's a long time since me and Nick had a chat. We were lucky enough to do our UEFA A licenses together. So again, welcome, Nick. Nice to see you, mate. How are you?
I'm good, mate. It's good to see you. That thing you read off our website, by the way, is 10 or 11 years old. So now it makes me feel older because it's not 2 decades. It's over 3 decades now, which is scary because it just seems like yesterday that me and you were at Lewishall doing our coaching badge, mate.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think it is. When I look back, it's 25 years, isn't it, since we did that? Since yeah, I know it's crazy, isn't it? It's yeah, just how time flies, unreal. But listen, first of all, thanks very much for agreeing to do this, and it's great. And I think, as I say, our parents will get, hopefully, their parents will get a lot of information from this, and which they genuinely need. So let's just jump straight into it, Nick, if that's okay. So.
Yeah.
Nick, if in terms of Liverpool, do you mind just giving us a little bit of an insight in your philosophy of Liverpool Academy and how they actually go about things in order to, support that player development piece?
Okay. Well, I mean, I could spend a whole webinar just talking about that question, but if I was to really summarize, I guess what we're about individual players. Ultimately, in the time I've been at the club, which is 11 years, we've only had 3 players make over 30 appearances that have come through the academy. That's how difficult it is. So obviously many others have gone on to play professional football, by the way, and play in the Premier League as well. But our entire philosophy is around hoping that we can allow each individual player maximise their potential. So we're a little bit less bothered about teams and how our teams do, because we recognise that Trent doesn't play with any of the players he played with in the academy now. He plays with a different set, and he's about to go and move to a different set of players. And that's the same for everybody. So we're very much about an individual approach and supporting our kids across the whole range of technical, tactical, social, psychological, physical, all the elements they need to try and be as good as they possibly can be, which is all we can do.
Mm. That's interesting, that, Nick, because you know a lot of times people talk about teams all the time, don't they? Playing in teams. Oh, our team won this, our team won that, and but essentially, there's only maybe one player that gets picked out of that one team. So, just elaborate a little bit more on that, would you please, mate, in terms of that individual?
Yeah. So as well as being individual, we're about who's going to be ready at 18, 19, 20. So really, how a team does at 12 or 14 is pretty irrelevant. And even how the player within that team is doing at that age is pretty irrelevant. What is relevant are the processes behind what they're doing going to allow them to be as good as they can be when they get to that time when they need to be elite. Now, some players will be elite all the way through. Generational talents like Rooney, Michael Owen, Bellingham will be the best from the beginning, but not everybody's like that. So, team approach for me, the team is there to support the player, and that's great. So we don't dismiss the team, or we don't dismiss results at all. They're important, and young players have got to want to win. But ultimately, when you can really kind of like focus your mind, whichever age group of that your son or your team plays in, on the fact that really nobody can tell me what Steven Gerrard's team did at 12 or what Trent's team did at 10. I look at Curtis Jones' team at 14 was pretty awful, really. It was getting beat left, right, and centre when I came there, but 3 players played in the Premier League came out of that team. Whereas others that were much more successful have had no players playing in the Premier League. So I guess it's one of the things experience tells you. The kids have got to want to win. They've got probably hurts if they don't win. But you as coaches and particularly as parents have got to understand it's all about the process, not about the team that lifts a trophy at 11 years of age. It doesn't really mean anything.
Right. So even though that those ages there, Nick, you're saying is that something that's overtly said to the players and the parents that, listen, we're not too bothered. Well, are you bothered about results, or is it about development, or how do you actually frame that?
So yeah, it's a difficult one, which I've got wrong many times, because I will, another thing obviously is like if you pick small, later developed kids that are going to not reach the physical maturation until 20, you're probably going to get beat by a team that picks all big kids. It's very easy for us to turn around and go, don't worry about that. It's okay. In the end, you're going to be all right. But we have to be very, very careful of that then the boys kind of aren't bothered if they lose or not. So it's definitely, there's some psychology behind it. We want the boys to like really want to win. We just want to win in the best style and in a way that gives each of our players the best chance of being as good as they can be. And as soon as that stops happening, then, and it just becomes about winning, we've got a problem. So there's an age-old thing that, even we were talking about many, many years ago, which is it about winning or is it about development? Well, really, you can do both. But when winning overcomes the development aspect of it, the process of it. So we've got a big centre forward, let's just get it smashed up front to him. We're going to win loads of games. Our midfield players never touch it. We've got some really quality midfield players. That would be suicide for the for the players that are playing there. Yeah. And for defenders who don't ever serve the midfield players, which you're going to have to be able to be really good at if you're elite. It might be okay for the big centre forward if that's his style, but then does that mean that he just becomes one-dimensional? So we do have to be careful how we talk to the boys about that, but it isn't win at all costs. It's definitely process first.
Right. So I just wanted to come back to something that you said earlier, and I just want you to reiterate for parents. So you're saying that in your time at Liverpool now, you've only had what you say 3 players that actually have gone into playing the Premier League?
No, not. So they've come all the way through from our pre-academy, gone all
right.
the way
through. Yeah.
The ones that played 30 games or more is Jarell Quansah, Curtis Jones, Trent Alexander-Arnold. So Connor Bradley joined us. There's been players that have joined us later, like Connor Bradley, that have gone on, but the ones that have just come all the way through our system. Right. It's only 3. So obviously, a lot of our boys have been with us since very young age. It's a little bit mad in England at the moment, in that the competition for boys really extends all the way down to 5 years of age, which is just ridiculous in my mind. Yeah. But unfortunately, if you don't do stuff with them in that age, they'll just go to another football club. You don't get them. Don't sign until they're under 9, though. So actually coming all the way through this, and so look at something like Nico Williams, who's at Nottingham Forest, went for over £20 million. Going to be in Europe next year. He's playing in the Premier League. He's doing pretty well. He's played in the World Cup, I think, the European Cup. He couldn't get past Trent.
Right.
The top player that came through the system all the way through, just didn't play 30 games. It's
Right.
so, if the parents are listening, you have to understand, it is so difficult. I do a presentation to our parents at the start of the year where I say, and I might have got this first stat wrong, a little bit wrong, but it's not far off. I think there's about 360 odd million registered footballers in the world, and only 220 can start a game in the Premier League each week. That's how difficult it is. So, maths tells you, however talented your boy is, this is going to be really, really hard.
Yeah.
And, people like yourselves have had a career and played football. You've kind of been through it and seen it. Many parents and coaches, perhaps who are just starting out, don't quite realize how hard it is. But you've still got to have that dream, haven't you?
No, exactly, and it's not about trying to rain on anyone's parade here. It's just to give the reality of it. It's difficult, and particularly if you're coming from outside as well. We'll get onto that a little bit later as well, Nick. But particularly if you're coming from abroad, and you're having to compete with all those people that you're dealing with as well in and around Liverpool, it's even harder, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really tough, really, really tough. And if you don't quite know what the level is, so, I mean, I've got a 12-year-old boy. So it's fascinating following him around, playing his sports. Football is one of them. He plays in the top league in Liverpool, the grassroots league, and I listen to parents, and I don't go in my Liverpool gear. I just listen to parents talk, and it's very, very easy to see their boys do really well and think, oh gosh, my son's really, really talented. He's got a great chance of being a footballer. But then you go and see the academy level, you go, wow. And then you go and see the top academy level. So I'm talking about if you take the best 2 or 3 players from Liverpool, best 2 or 3 from City, best 2 or 3 players from Man United, best 2 or 3 from Everton. So the best in the Northwest, it's another level again. And then only a few of them are going to get to be England level. And really, most of the England youth players don't become Premier League players.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, great insight. Just moving on a little bit now, Nick, if you don't mind, just talk to us about the pathway for players at Liverpool and what that actually looks like. So you're a kid, obviously at the Liverpool Academy. What does that pathway look like?
So basically, they can join the club at 5, but not register for the club, and they'll often be going to all the Northwest clubs at the time. So between under 5 and under 8, there's basically a scramble for players. I mean, it's not a great way of describing it. I really like the way we're set up in that it's really, really, child-centered, fun. They've got to come out and loving the game. It's not like really massively serious, but there's a lot of good players playing together. They can then sign under 9 and under 9, under 10, under 11, under 12. They sign 1-year registration periods. I hate the word contract because they're not contracts. 1-year registration periods, and then once they've gone past the under 12 age group, they sign a 2-year registration period to under 14. Another 2-year after under 14, 15s, and 16s, and then it's a 2-year registration when they leave school in England at under 16 after they've done their GCSEs, and they sign what's called a scholarship, where they do an education program alongside their football. And then from the age of 17, they can sign a professional contract, which is basically you can then pay them whatever you want. The length of contract is still limited. You still can't sign them for 2, can't sign 8-year contracts like Chelsea have done with some senior players because they're still young, they're still children. And during that period, all the way through the academy, we'll have we'll have some key themes that run all the way through, but we'll obviously change little bits of it as they get older to prepare them to eventually, hopefully, have a career.
Right. So, I mean, and maybe this question now to what you're saying is, obviously there is a long way for them to go through that pathway, if you like. And so, as they're going through that pathway now, then Nick, what is it that you're looking for in terms of a player, just to identify those kind of strengths and areas for improvement? What is it you're actually looking for in a young player, would you say?
Well, if they're going to play for Liverpool, they're going to have to be elite in the end. The way I like to describe it, and it's the same way I speak to our parents at the start of the year, is I kind of see it, and this is a very simplistic way of putting it, by the way, is because you've got the benefit of seeing them over time and seeing how they learn. That's very, very important, how they learn. What are their what are they good at technically? What are their physical attributes, and do they match up? So the example I always use is Lionel Messi. So Lionel Messi, physically, you don't need to be big to be a footballer. But I guess if you're going to be quite small, you're probably going to be. It's only probable because there are exceptions, and I can talk about them as well. Because he's really agile and can change direction really quickly, he's got unbelievable acceleration, and technically he's unbelievable at receiving the ball and dribbling, and he can do loads of other things, finishing as well. They match up, don't they? So if he was a really quick, agile, with great acceleration of a small distance, but couldn't control the ball and couldn't manipulate the ball over those small areas, he wouldn't be a footballer. Because he can, they match up together. If you're a goalkeeper and you've got unbelievable, your techniques and all the goalkeeper fantastic, but you're 5'5", you're probably not going to be a goalkeeper. So do those two things match up? Kind of look at, and are they learning of those? And then obviously, do they make good decisions? So if you've got those two things, in Messi's case, among many other things, really quick, really agile, can accelerate, unbelievable ball manipulation skills, but then all he ever does is just like boot it, because he's making really bad decisions, and that doesn't fit either. So that doesn't work. So they've got to make good decisions around that identity, and then absolutely underlying it, and you know this as well as anybody, is mentally they've got to be able to handle themselves. They've got to be so strong. In fact, about 7 or 8 years ago, in the academy at the time, there was myself. There's people who've been in the game for at least a decade. Myself, Steve Highway, who worked with all the Liverpool legends, really. Neil Critchley had been at Crewe a long time and been at Liverpool, done a lot with Trent. Michael Beale, who'd seen all the Chelsea boys come through. And Alex, the academy director, who'd seen loads of players come through at Tottenham. The latest one at that time had been Harry Kane. And we kind of did a little, like a tick box exercise. So if there was one attribute that every player didn't have, we knocked it off, because that means you don't have to have that attribute. We just looked at the attributes that every single top player that we'd ever worked with had, and there was 8 of them, and 7 of them were around mentality, how they thought. So underlying that technical, physical mix, the decisions they make, how to use those, absolutely, they can all be brilliant. But if they are not mentally very, very good, and that can show itself in all different ways, and again, you can think about all the players you played with, then they're probably going to fail as well.
Right. And would you say, as part of that, in terms of the mentality, then, would you say there's things about how to handle failure as well, in terms of
resilience,
if you like?
Resilience is massive. And again, want to make it clear that there isn't like, this is the way to handle failure, you know. So, you know, I'm not talking out of turn here, because you can read this, you can read all about Trent's journey, and I have nothing to do with Trent. Trent was 16 when I came, so Trent's journey is Trent's journey. He deserves unbelievable credit. His mum deserves unbelievable credit. They're the main two. And there's some coaches, Neil Critchley, Alex, and many others that have like helped him along the way. But it's well known that Trent struggled at times when things weren't going well for him. He talks about it. And I thought this is a really good lesson for our younger coaches, because it would show itself in ways that you would think are poor, aren't good. So you might get really angry, kick balls off the training pitch. Right. Sometimes in extreme things, almost like packing in games. And again, it's what he's spoken about. But it came from a place of him hating losing, hating not being able to do well. He's a super competitive boy at everything, which is one trait that all the elite players I've seen are. So he had something that came from a really good place, hated losing, wanted to be a winner, and it manifests itself in not good ways. So it's then the coach's job, and his family and him, so unbelievable credit again to them, to kind of like almost redirect that anger in a better way. Other kids can just like laugh off when it just goes wrong, and they're just like bulletproof. So there's not like a book way of dealing with failure. But you are going to have to be able to deal with it. You are going to have to be unbelievably resilient, and it's part of the process. That's what we say to all our players all the time. If it doesn't go wrong, no problem. What are you going to do about it? What's next? Are you going to sulk? Is it going to be blaming everybody else? Or are you going to take ownership for your part of it and make yourself better at it?
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I mean, just going on to that as well, you know, you talked about there about coaches, and how important coaches may well be in terms of nurturing that environment for players to develop that resiliency, if you like. What kind of qualifications does a coach have to have to be at Liverpool Football Club? And I know there's a generic thing in terms of category status as well, but being at Liverpool, what coaching qualifications do you have to coach in the academy?
So the minimum qualification you could have is a UEFA B license and what's called the FA Youth Award. If you are full time, you'll also need an Advanced Youth Award and an A license.
Right.
The key, so like the head, you have to have enough of those.
Right.
That's the minimum qualifications. But to be really, really clear, the qualifications, of course, are part of it and are important. But there are lots and lots of people with B license that will get nowhere near the club. And Nick Marshall, when I knew you, will get nowhere near Liverpool.
Right.
There's we would like to consider ourselves as kind of like at the end of a journey for a coach who's into development. That's not to say we haven't got young and experienced coaches that are from the locality that are learning.
Right.
But if you're from further afield, you're not local and you can go, you can afford to drive in and be part and watch sessions and work part-time and all that sort of stuff, then you would need to be a well-qualified coach with a lot of experience.
Right. So you're saying in terms of the way that you identify coaches, that the qualifications are really important in order just to get in the door or have a conversation about being a.
There are rules. There are rules. If you're going to work in an academy, you have to have a minimum B license. If you haven't got that, you can't work in an academy.
Right.
And if you want to be a more senior coach, you have to have an A license.
Right.
So there are rules, but to be clear, I've come across coaches who are what's called the level 2 course. The UEFA B license is the level 4, who've been really talented and really high potential, and people have A licenses and even pro licenses that aren't particularly great at the youth development side of coaching. So it's an element of what's important, but there is a basic rule that says you don't have the UEFA B, you can't work.
Of course. Okay. And then so in terms of the club, then what are you doing with your coaches in terms of their professional development? So you might have that B license or an A license, but that's not it, is it? In terms of their development, what is it you do as a club in terms of their kind of continuous professional development?
So ultimately, unlike some places, we like to try and take control of that. So the occasional coach will go on to another course if you think it's relevant for them. But we really, and I was the same when I was at Forest, we really like to induct them in a kind of our way.
Of course.
I think the CPD goes on every day just by the conversations in the building, talking about football. We're very fortunate. We've got some experienced people around the place. We are very, very keen that we also have some people who've been at Liverpool, played at Liverpool around the place to kind of pass on their fields. We've got some ex-players around the place as well. We're very fortunate. We've got Steve McManaman comes in, Rob Jones comes in, Michael Thomas comes in, and they're really invaluable from a playing background to pass on their knowledge of the club and what we're after. We run our own CPD, so on Monday mornings we basically have a coaches meeting. It doesn't take place every Monday because a lot of our coaches are at tournaments and whatever abroad at keep times. But I think over the course of the season we'll play about 15 to 20 of those, where we'll discuss different topics. We'll present. We'll break off into groups. We'll go and do study visits to different clubs where we think we can learn. And then, like I say, occasionally we've got one of our coaches, under 12 coach at the moment, he's on a PFA psychology course. Our under 13 coaches, the first one we've actually put in all my time there on a Premier League course that they run called called ECAS, which is elite coaching qualification that they run. So we'll occasionally branch out and do a little bit that other people do and expose our coach to that, but we try and take as much charge of it as we can, really.
So I mean that's brilliant. I mean, it sounds like they have a lot of support into developing themselves as coaches, but obviously that's to fit in with your philosophy there at Liverpool, doesn't it? So going on from that, then, can you talk a little bit more about your training curriculum? So what is it that you're actually doing in terms of each age group as they're getting older, in terms of the training curriculum and what's actually being delivered on a day-to-day and a session-by-session basis?
Okay, so this is a little bit difficult to explain because So when I was at Forest, we had a curriculum. So week 1, we're going to work on this. Week 2, we're going to work on this. But when you've got that, I almost like describe it as a recipe book for coaches. So if I want to go and cook something at home, I can pull out a recipe book, and it's fantastic for like trainee chefs, your fella or lady or whatever it is who's at home, wants to cook some food. Follow the instructions, and you're going to get this.
Right.
I like to describe elite youth development as more of like Michelin star chefs. Okay, they're not following a book. They're not following the curriculum. They kind of like they taste the food, and we need a little bit more salt, a little bit of this in. So we don't have a curriculum. We have some key core themes we work on, which I can explain. But because we're about the individual players within the group, our curriculum is based around their needs, not we're going to work on how to play out from the back, how to play through the middle, how we finish attacks, how we press. There'll be bits of that in it, particularly as they get older. So there'll be of course, that's in there as they get older. Again, based around what they need. So, for example, if we've got a lot of really talented midfield players in our group, we might do a lot of play into midfield, because we want our back on the ball. We need our back players to be able to serve midfield players. If you're going to be elite, you need to be really good at serving midfield players. And our front players, if our midfield players are really, really good, are going to get the ball off the midfield players loads. If we didn't have that, and I was at a different club, it might be that, okay, we just need to get the ball into our front players. Let's go longer, quicker. So it's very much based around the individuals. A lot of our sessions are about, like unit work, individual work. What does this player need? What does that player need? We have some core themes that kind of run through. So we have core themes like outplaying. How do you outplay your opponents? So do you outplay? So go back to that messy thing, the football identity being based on their technical qualities, their physical qualities, and then their decision making, and they're surrounded by the mentality. Do you outplay? Is your preferred way of outplaying with the ball going past somebody, driving past people, dribbling past people? Is your preferred way combining with your teammates to get past them? Is your preferred way just your movement off the back of people to get in? And then let's work on those things. So good for you. So, for example, if you've got a relatively slow player, he's probably not going to be dribbling past people very much. So his way will beat people probably by his intelligence to make movements off the ball, is combining with his teammates. That then kind of like will be based around how we work with him in the week. So outplaying is kind of a theme that runs through the program, and the older they get, the more specific we can be about how they individually outplay. So Salah outplays a different way than Szoboszlai. And of course, it's also about how you stop people outplaying you. So what are your qualities, Van Dijk, which is stop people outplaying. So we'll base our sessions around those core themes. There are, as they get older, some kind of like Liverpool, team-based stuff. Okay, but we don't spend hours and hours like teaching people how to press and all that, because that's quite easy to learn. We try to teach people the really tough things and give them exposure to doing the really hard things, which means we make loads of mistakes, which means we go back to the game bit at the beginning. We might lose games that we don't like losing because we're asking our players to do really hard things. Because if they're going to be elite and be top, they've got to practice those hard things over and over and over again, and over and over and over again in games. Does that kind of make sense? Because it's not as simple as this, then this, then this, then this. It's this, then this, then this, then this.
So that for me, that comes back to then the education of your coaches, then, doesn't it, and the experience of your coaches. So you're giving them a broad kind of campus in terms of, okay, this is what we'd like you to do, and then are you kind of leaving them to actually deliver that with just these core themes and say, right, with your experience, you should be able to produce your sessions, as opposed to saying, right, this is what you want you to do on a Tuesday night, this is what you're doing on a Thursday night.
So we talk about players a lot in the office. We spend a lot of time talking about our players, what we're trying to give them, what they need. I think what's a little bit unique about Liverpool, and if I look at when I first started, when we met and I was at Forest, I'd go to an academy directors meeting, and there'd all be 75% of them, 80% would be coaches. A lot of them would have been players. They really got the game. Now academies have ballooned so big that a lot of people running the academies are recruitment people, education people, operational people. They're not necessarily coaches.
Right.
What's a little bit unique about us in terms of if it was just, if I was maybe a little bit of a smaller club, I might want a curriculum because I'd want to know and guarantee that the coaches were doing the right thing for the players that I had at the smaller club, with all due respect, and I've worked for those clubs.
Right.
Definitely not being disrespectful. The thing that's a little bit unique about us is that the academy director is a coach. He runs the professional development phase, the under 21s, under 18s, and for us under 16s. So he is out a lot around those age groups, watching what's going on, redirecting the coaches, talking to the coaches, doing sessions himself. I run the what's called the youth development phase, so 12s to 15s, a little bit of 16s as they transition into it. So I'm out a lot of the coaching or being around the coaches, watching what they're doing, talking about the session.
Right.
We have another coach who's the head of coaching for 9s to 11s. He's out watching all this. So we've got hands-on senior people at the club watching this go on and kind of like course correcting if it's not quite right, but also listening to the coaches, and they work with the players more. And sometimes they have some fantastic ideas. They're really, really talented people. So there's a lot of conversations going on. It's not just a case of, right, there it is, go and deliver it, and let's hope for the best.
Definitely. There's obviously a method to the madness there, isn't there? You can see about what's coming out of the academy there at Liverpool. But you've talked a lot about, we've talked about the coaches, and we've talked about your philosophy and the technical, tactical stuff that players will be getting. What about, how do you help players kind of balance that thing between obviously being a good football player and then obviously they're still going to school, aren't they? So how do you support them in that piece there, Nick?
We made a decision at COVID to basically, a lot of clubs started to run, well before COVID, we were one of them, started to run, thought it was a great idea, and I would have probably thought the same at Forest. Can we get more access to the players? Can we take them out of their school environment? Can we even put them in our own school? A lot of clubs did that. And now we get these players a lot more. We've got to do a lot more for them. We very quickly realised, we spoke to the players, we spoke to people in the groups that have come through, that it wasn't a particularly great experience for them because they just had no release from the football club. I went away on tour with a lad called Tom Clayton, who was in Curtis Jones's group. And Tom played for Swindon, had a career, got injured. Hopefully he'll go back to having his career. And a really, really interesting conversation about how tough he found it. So we went away from that day release, school release model, taking them out of school. We want them to be kids as much as we can be. We're probably going to reintroduce it to our older age groups just for one afternoon a week and work really closely with the schools to make sure it impacts. It's not going to be saying like on a Tuesday afternoon, we want all our kids in. We're going to go to schools and say, when is it that works for you? We'll bring the kids in 2s, 3s, 4s. If it's 6, great. We'll do that individual work that I keep talking about with them. So we want a minimal disruption to their lives. The social part of being not being a footballer. So Tom would say, I went to school, I was a Liverpool Academy player. I went to the academy, I was a Liverpool Academy player. Now, of course, all the social media, parents are putting stuff on thing. My son plays, they're in Liverpool. So the whole identity becomes about being a Liverpool Academy player or whatever club it is. And then if they get released, most of them will do, what you got left? So we're very, very strong on that, and maybe even hurts us a little bit because some clubs will, it's quite appealing to parents and boys. So we might miss out on the odd boy by doing that, but we try and keep things as normal as we possibly can. The issue is after COVID, of course, what they do is they go to individual coaches, they go to so they're still kind of like, in my opinion, a lot of them still just completely like just a footballer, so and there's not, you've got to be careful, there's nothing else there. So we talk about that in the induction, how to give your boy some an identity outside of what he is when he's with us.
Right. No, I mean, so basically you still want them to be kids and children and still be part of the fabric of the school that they go to as well. Because I think, to your point, I saw it as well, where you've got these kids that are good footballers, they're at an academy or whatever, but that's them. So they kind of, they're seen as somebody different or alien when they're even in school because people are reacting to them differently as well, aren't they?
which is great when things going well. But
Yeah.
if they get let go and they go to school, that is tough.
Yeah.
Very, very, very difficult, and every parent and every boy is different. So, I'd be a hypocrite if I said again that there's one way of doing it. If it was my boy, I'd be saying just don't even, just keep it quiet. Just go and do your thing.
Yeah.
Just go and be, Alex. What was my son's name? Alex, the school kid. If you go somewhere else, then you can be Alex football. If you go Alex, the cricket player, Alex, the whatever it is, the musician. Have different kind of like hats you can put on.
No, definitely. So do you think, are you still seeing them even when kids are in the academy then? Would you say they're kind of, because I know since COVID came along, the thing around individual training would just gone through the roof, or private training. Are kids still doing too much, do you think?
Well, I don't know whether it's because we scan more, but there's never been we talked to lots of people in the academies. There's never been as many pars fractures. They're kind of tiny little fractures in spines and whatever. We do scan more, so we find them out a lot more than we used to do. We probably didn't know they even existed before. But there's never been as many.
So you talk about like stress fractures?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, little stress fractures. So overuse injuries. I mean, there's never been as much knowledge around how to look after those and not do too much, but it seems to be getting a lot more. And I think the clubs are at fault for that as well. I think the clubs have got to be careful. Can't just blame parents or kids or individual coaches going elsewhere. But I do think it's a little bit of a worry. It's a little bit of a worry, and there's a lot of people, and some of them are good, by the way. But there's a lot of people earning a lot of money and sticking a lot of stuff on Instagram. And yeah, I had a story only yesterday of a coach basically saying to a player, I just want to film you doing something wrong, so do this wrong, and then I'm going to talk to you and teach you how to do it right, and then you can do what you normally do, and we're going to stick it on Instagram. Like, okay, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's why we're trying to do the webinars like these, really, to try and give parents, an insight into what actually happens. What is it that the, professional clubs like Liverpool FC, world-renowned Liverpool FC, what is it that they're actually doing to support player development in their clubs? Because that's your job, is about developing players.
It's a real tough one for us because on the one hand you go, like I say, I want to be really, really clear. Like every industry, there'll be some good one-to-one coaches who get it, right? Yeah. Like I'm not having to go one-to-one coaches. I have a little bit more of a issue when it's like for social media, and I've worked with this player and I want to charge 120 quid to somebody who's never going to be a footballer, and give them. I have a little bit of an issue around that sort of stuff, and I also understand why if a boy really wants to be doing more practice, that makes sense. And again, so there'll be times, because everybody's journey is different. Every individual person can handle it. If they're getting a really good coach, really good at the right time, and they do some good work with them, maybe it helps them. So I'm definitely not saying it's all bad. But what do we do about it if it is bad? Because we could turn around and go, right, we're going to put on more sessions then. So they don't go to the individual coaches. Well, then we've been complete hypocrites. We're saying, well, actually, you need to rest. And what about your schoolwork? And, you need to recover and whatever, but we're putting this on to stop them going somewhere else, then we're part of the problem as well. Can we open up a centre in this place? They don't have to come all the way to the academy. Well, we can't do that because that's a breaking of a rule. We can't break rules. So, like everything, it's not easy. It's not like there's not a simple solution to solve everything. And some are good, some are not so good. Some parents have really good intentions and it might work for them. Some not. Some are just pushing the kids too hard. It's a tough one to solve. But COVID, as I'm sure, as everywhere, there's a lot of people making a lot of money. In fact, just to really show this, there are coaches choosing not to work in academies because they can earn more money doing that.
Yeah.
Not at Liverpool Academy, by the way. I'm sure if they could work for Liverpool, I would have thought they would do. But there are lots of other academies. Just because we're in a position where we know we're an elite club and we can probably pay decent money. But there's certainly, I know of good clubs with good youth programs who can't get good coaches because they're earning silly money doing individual stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know what, like I say, it's getting the balance, isn't it, and the information as well. And I think, even that thing around you saying about how there's never been as many kind of kids with those overuse injuries than ever. That for me is a worry. Do you know what I mean? And we have to get the balance right somewhere, don't we? Let's move on a little bit then, and if you don't mind, can you talk? I just would like you just to talk a little bit. We're obviously on an island here in the Cayman Islands, and lots of people want to talk about getting into academies, whether it be locally or well, I say academies, it has to be internationally here, nationally from places like these. Can you talk a little bit about the recruitment process in Liverpool in terms of what you do locally? And then what you're doing internationally as well, just so parents understand a bit more about that recruitment process.
Okay, so the rules underpin everything here. So if it's dead simple, up to the age of 12, the boys can only be within an hour of an academy. So if they're if they're further out than out, you're not allowed to sign them, right? England is a unique country in terms of its football infrastructure and just how many professional clubs there are, which is completely different to Spain or Germany. We've got, double, treble the number of professional football clubs. You can go to a second division match, a League Two match is with the fourth tier and get 20,000 people there. That happens nowhere else in the world. I've been to French second division games, championship level games, and there's been like 500 people there. It's completely different. There are so many football clubs. So unless you're kind of like maybe really Cornwall or somewhere really out of the way, there are clubs near you. So it's to stop people traveling ridiculous amounts. Once you get to 12, between 12 and 16, they have to be within 90 minutes away. Okay, right. The 90 minutes you can't sign them unless they are in in Great Britain, so Scotland. In fact, tell a lie. I'll come on to that one in a minute because it gets even more complicated. Right. So at 14, we can sign them from another football club in England, or if you live 50 kilometres from the border of Wales or Scotland, and they live 50 kilometres on the other side, you can sign them from another country, but they have to be British. Okay, so obviously they have to be British anyway, because there's no other countries that are 50 kilometres either side, because we've got England now, and England, Wales, Scotland.
Right.
So we can move them then at 14 years of age if we put them in a host family and we take care of their school, and it's called a full-time training program. So at 14 we can do that, but they have to be British. And if you don't live 50 kilometres from the border, so I could live in Wrexham, for example, I can't sign for pretty much any other club than maybe Liverpool and Everton, because nobody's that side of the border.
Right.
At 16, we can sign any of those British Isles players and do the same, move them across. And at 16, you're more likely to do it because you then put them on this scholarship program.
Right.
You then get to FIFA regulations. So unless they have a British passport and have moved for non-football reasons, so you can't, I want my son to be a footballer, I'm going to move him over to England. It has to be for non-football reasons, and it will be investigated. If they are British and they get to 16, they can come over and sign for a football club, but only for non-football reasons.
Right.
Other than that, FIFA regulations, 18 years of age. So if you've got no British passport, it's 18. Okay, that's the basic regulations from FIFA. So locally, the younger ages from the Premier League, the Football Association, 16 to 18, it's FIFA. So until Brexit, at 16 years of age, you could sign people from Europe because of the European Union. Brexit, that's finished, 18.
Right.
Now you get to 18, so you might be thinking, any of your parents there, my son's 18, happy days, I can come and play in England. No. There's then a points-based system that they will have to get through. The points-based system will be based around, are they playing international football? And if you're playing international football, what level it is. So unfortunately, the Cayman Islands wouldn't be seen as a top level international football, so you get hardly any points for that. It would then be based around what football club you were playing for. Okay, and again, it would need to be like a top level football club for them to move to England.
Right.
There are exceptions, which is like an exceptionally talented player that you can prove but will still need to be playing at a high level, could then move over and sign. So you can have an exception to that rule. But the long and short of it is it's really, really difficult to sign for any football club in England if you aren't in England. Which will be bad news to, parents, and bad news to anybody listening, I guess. If you've got dreams for your son to be a footballer, it's going to be really, really tough. And it will probably need to be 18, and they're going to have to be unbelievable to get the points to get into the country to play, even if they've got British passports.
No, yeah. I mean, without being, without being facetious, there are people that end up kind of circumventing, if you like, going through technical loopholes, aren't they, Nick? In terms of, okay, they may well be British, but parents will move because they've got work or something like that in England. How does that how's that investigated, or how does that work?
So if they're playing football, which they will be, of course, their international transfer certificate will lay in that country. Right. So the FA would have to apply to that country's FA to get their international transfer certificate. It would then go to FIFA, who will then go and investigate, okay, what's going on here? Right, why has he moved over? So one of our top recruitment guys was asked this question the other day about a player who had been recommended to the academy director, who had a British passport, who was thinking about moving back to England for non-football reasons. And his response to the academy director was, great, regulations-wise, he could, but his international transfer certificate is going to lie in that other country, so we just won't be able to do it.
Right.
Now, could somebody come across at 14 and sign for a club? Potentially they might do if they've got a British passport and it was at a really young age, 12, 13, 14. Would it really get investigated that much? Potentially not if it was maybe in a football league club, but then they would get to the age where they are eligible to play first team football and it just get investigated then, so they could spend all that time and then go, what's going on here? This is all done illegally and you've got a problem.
Right. Interesting. So at least you were getting it from the horse's mouth here now into what's going on.
You can still, and you can look into all these. If you go onto the FA website, you can find the points based system on the FA website. It's quite a long document. Equally, you can go on a FIFA website and get the regulations around transfer in FIFA. So you have got access. They are freely available on the internet. You just need a bit of time to wade through them all.
Right. Okay. Just a quick note, just to our parents that are on the call here, please, if you want to ask questions, don't forget to put it in the chat here, and I'll put them to Nick at the end of the session. So Nick, obviously this is it's a parent workshop, as it were, and we try to give as much information to parents. So at Liverpool now, what kind of, how do you see parents? What's their role in terms of development of players at Liverpool Academy? What is it that you're saying to parents, or the information that you're giving them to kind of support the development of the players?
So we do some generic stuff around, particularly around the induction time, and then we have meetings with them in the season. And just like the players, they're all individual as well. We've got to respect that there is no one way. There's no one way of parenting either. So what you'll classically see is we'll talk about parents being supportive of their children, bringing them, not making the journey home you should have done this, should have done that. All I ever say to my lad is, did you enjoy yourself? Did you try hard? And I can't know if he's tried hard or not. Anyway, I just watch him. Don't say anything at the sideline. And you kind of like go, in your head, that's a really good way to parent. But there are players who come through where parents have been really, really forceful and really, really pushy and aggressive with the child, and it's worked. But equally, there's probably been a lot of kids being broken by that approach if they failed. So it's a very risky approach to do that. You might end up with a kid who don't want to speak to you again. There's been there's some successful players who have got no relationships with their parents anymore because that's the way they were treated when they were young. So it's a big risk doing it that way. I definitely wouldn't suggest you do it. My thing would be and I spoke about this at the beginning, like, what is the process to becoming a professional footballer? Or a better question, what's the process to helping your son be as good as they possibly can be? And it's really to help them find their way. The best players are really intelligent. the best players kind of like work stuff out. So Diane, and again, I didn't deal with Diane. I've just listened to her speak many, many times. Would be I guess, quite a tough parent. But what she was tough around whenever I've listened to her speak was like the standards for her son, doing really well at school. Right, she would tell him when he didn't play well, but if he's not tried hard and all that sort of stuff. So I guess what she was talking about would almost be what I hear was almost the controllable stuff, what the boy was in control of.
Right.
And that's what I would say. So if you're slagging your lad off on the way home because he's misplaced his pass or he's missed some shots, then it's probably not meant to do that. If he's done it because he was daydreaming and he wasn't running hard and he wasn't doing as well as he can do, then all right, that's a different kettle of fish. But think about the processes that your boy needs to go through and support him on those processes. And if you have to be tough on the processes, if he really wants it, because if he doesn't, you're risking having a bad relationship with your son. And I would recommend every parent, you can go onto YouTube, it's dead easy, and just put in their, I forget his name now, blooming heck, that's going to do, Van Persie, Robin Van Persie, talking about his son, Feyenoord. And he talks about his son when his son had the hump because he wasn't picked for a game.
Yeah, I've seen, yeah.
You've seen it. So I always show that to the parents.
Yeah.
Okay. Winners, it's called Winners Take Control.
That
Robin Van Persie, Winners Take Control. So he's talking about what can you do, his son? What are you going to do about the fact you weren't being picked? What are you going to do about? Stop moaning about everything else. What are you going to do about it? Ultimately, you've got to be resilient. You've got to take charge of your own journey. And I think that's the same for all of us in life. I think that's definitely the same for me as a coach. If things aren't going well, stop moaning about everybody else. But look at yourself first.
Always.
And if you can get your son to do that, he's key, or he, and if you've got a daughter, she are going to be as good as they can be. And if they aren't footballers, they'll learn some unbelievable life lessons that's going to help them with something else they're going to do.
No doubt. And that thing around, I always talk about, people talk about communicating in football and saying, I've got to look after my own job first before I start helping other people. Do you know what I mean? So, I'm all for that. But like you say, the parents, the last thing that you want to do, I suppose, as well, and I'm pretty sure you're very cognizant of this, that you don't want to tell people how to parent their kids. But
it's such a tough one. It's such a difficult one because, me and my wife have conversations. People are entitled to have different opinions than you, and you might parent a different way to somebody else parents. So it's really, really difficult. All you can kind of give them is a little bit of experience of people who have come through and how they've done it. And like I say, although every little journey is a bit different, what I would say is, and again, there'll be an exception, but when I spoke to you earlier on about the 7 or 8 characteristics we thought every player had that came through that we'd ever dealt with, all right, the one non-mental one was parents. And this is the really good. This is really what it was: either supportive parents or non-existent parents.
Right.
That's the odd one. So we see some top players who came through, and there will be exceptions. So I get there will be exceptions, but the ones we'd all work with, the parents that weren't really getting involved and weren't around very much, right? The children of those parents, there were more of those who became top players than there were the ones who were incredibly pushy, trying to take control with the son all the time, pushing the son in ridiculous things, being really, really needy, really, 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 really argumentative with the clubs. We didn't have any of them. So that's not to say that the parents can't be challenging.
No.
There's a difference between being challenging and being silly. All right. So challenging about, that's not right. Okay, because you're entitled to an opinion. But then you can have a conversation with them. Well, this is the reason why we did it. And they go, I'm not sure about that. Well, but okay. Or no, fair enough. I've got it wrong.
Right.
And if it's not right, they might do something with the son in a different way. But yeah, all the players we've dealt with, it's like the players, I guess. Like players, you know, a lot of the best players are quite, and again, you'll have played them, are quite challenging to work with.
Yeah.
And they challenge you to work with them, but it comes from a good place.
Yeah.
You know, it comes from wanting to be as good as they can be, or having something different about them. I think if you're a parent trying to create an opportunity for your boy by just being a little bit silly, I haven't seen it work.
Mm. No, it's interesting. I don't forget being, playing as a young player at Man City, and remember after a game, we had a youth game, and after a game, one of the lads saying, oh, he was crying, and we talk about a 17-year-old now, and I said, "What are you crying for?" And he said, "Oh, I'm not played particularly well, and I've got to go back home in the car with my dad." I'm not. I'm like, "So what are you crying?" He says, "Ah, well, it's just going to be a nightmare going back home in the car." So even you can imagine what it's like. He's 17. He's obviously nearly a grown man. You talk about kids that are getting, younger kids that are getting kind of, getting the third degree when they get home in the car, if you like, about what's happened and blah blah. There's obviously a balance to have there, isn't there?
Make a deal with your son. All right. Is this what you want to do? This is what you want to do. Do you want to be a footballer? All right. Okay. We're going to give it our best shot. I'm going to help you give it your best shot. All right. Now, what is he in control of? He's in control of listening. He's in control of learning. He's in control of working as hard as he can be, and trying to improve. He's not in control of having a bad game. He might play against somebody who's just better than him on the day. He might have just an off day. He might be feeling a bit ill. His touch might be off. Is he still working hard? He's still trying to do the right things. If he isn't, and you've made that deal with your son, you told me you want to be as good as you can be, then come on, you didn't work hard enough. Or no wonder you didn't play well at the weekend because you've not taken practice seriously. You are in control of those things, son, so I can have a go at you. If you are in control of them, then, and you want to risk your relationship with your boy over something that they can't control, and children have committed suicide off the back of not becoming footballers. Okay, I'm not saying that's parents' fault. I'm not saying that at all. All right, there's a number of things. Okay, sure. But it'd be pressure or identity to be a footballer might be one of those contributing factors. That comes from a lot of different areas. Again, I'm not saying it's parents. Okay, but if you want to contribute to that by having a go at your son for something that they can't control, then I'm not sure that's a good idea. And then go back to the Van Persie thing: winners take control the controllables, control the things you can do, help them control it. And if they want to be footballers and they've said, yeah, that's what I want to do, and they aren't doing it, then you want to be quite tough with them in a sensible way, as some parents I've seen I've been, then that's a different kettle of fish. But you've then got to accept that if they then don't want to become a footballer, you've got to lay off. It's their dream, not your dream.
Of course. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, Nick. What are your expectations for parents in terms of the training environment? So, meaning, what do you expect from them in terms of communication or whatever? In terms of the coach being the coach at that time, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what it is, isn't it? I always say the same to any parent who isn't like that. I said, don't see you going into your school and tell the maths teacher what you should be doing. What are you doing? With all due respect, this is football's it's certainly in England, it's a very unique thing. You wouldn't go to a gymnastics class or a cricket session or a swimming session and start shouting onto your kid what to do, right? So there's a difference between shouting on encouragement, well played, well done. I don't have a massive issue. We don't really see it. If a parent shouts on, "Come on, son, you're not running." We're going back to that controllable thing. But I'd be very disappointed if the parents are giving them instructions. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, because we're on one side, they're on the other side. And if they're clever,
right.
But if they were, we knew it, and we would say, we would say, "Come on, what's going on? If you want to coach them, that's fine. We'll stop coaching them. You can coach them, right? If you know more." But football's unique in it because everybody watches Gary Neville and Jimmy Carragher and thinks and everything about football. Right? We're still learning, and I'm still learning about football 32, 33 years into a journey, having seen thousands of kids go through it.
Mm.
But I do practice what I preach. So
Yeah.
I don't say anything to my kid when he does any sport, including the one I know the most about. And I get parents coming to me and saying, "How come you're the quietest one here and you probably know them in the most?" Well, it's because I know the most. I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Uh,
I still get stick from my 25-year-old now, Nick, talking to me. Well, why didn't you let me go to Man City when I was 8? Well, you've just answered your question because you were 8. Do you know what I mean? Get on with, just go play and enjoy your football. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
well, that was then, mate. You don't see what it's like now.
oh yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Nick, listen, we're getting to the end of, obviously we're going to the end of our, our time with you. So obviously, I really appreciate your time that you're giving with us. Just got a couple of questions here, parent questions, if that's okay. Just
Yeah.
in the chat here. So it says, what do you think I mean, you've probably alluded to this already. So what are the three most important characteristics to be a successful, to be in a successful academy? So, what three important player characteristics to be to be successful at an academy?
So what three things would we want from our players to therefore have successful academy players?
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty much. What is the characteristics to be a successful academy player?
uh, well, it's what I said. It's meant,
Yeah, you touched on
if
it.
they're in the building, they're going to be talented. So I recruit. So the obvious one, you got to have, you got to have talent. I don't buy the you can create talent and you can work hard and be as good as you can be, whatever it is. Otherwise, we'd all be rock stars. We'd all be footballers. We'd all be everything.
Right.
There has to be some genetic stuff in there that physically allows you to be an elite athlete, which is what footballers are nowadays.
Yeah.
Right. So it can look different. That's the beauty of football. They don't all have to be 6'10" or whatever it's like to be a basketball, or 6'4". They can be small, they can be big, but they're probably going to have some kind of like elite athletic ability. Right. And people who supporters would say they're slow, or so people would say, I've heard supporters say, well, Jimmy Carragher wasn't very quick. At 15, he was one of the quickest people in Liverpool, right? Compared to other many elite footballers, maybe he wasn't as quick as them, but so they're going to have a physical elite quality, obviously, because they are athletes now. They're top athletes. They're clearly going to have to be talented in terms of like have some technical ability that they can then use cleverly with their decision making. Right, so they make good decisions. They understand what they are as their identity is, and then just no doubt, it's tough mentally. You've got to be so resilient because you're going to get knockback after knockback after knockback. I look at the journey of some of the Liverpool players. You just have to go on to look at Andy Robertson, let go at Celtic and come through Queen's Park. Look at Virgil van Dijk, the best centre half I've ever seen. Absolutely love him. Right, it didn't really get a contract at his club. They basically let him go on a free just about before then they offered him something. Look at the journey of Luis Diaz and how he's come through. Curtis Jones, like I say, at 12, 13, 14, his team was really poor. I was amazed when I first came here. They were getting battered, like 8-1, 9-0 to like big clubs, 5-2, 5-0 to smaller clubs in the area. So a mental resilience and stamina, I would say, to be able to just keep going.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask the last thing here I wanted to ask you, Nick, was about, and obviously it's just one lasting thing that that you may say to parents. And if it's one thing that you would say to parents, what would be that one thing? I mean, you may have said it already, but if it's one thing, if you want to leave something with parents, what would that lasting impression or that last kind of thought, I should say, what would it be for parents?
So all the best footballers I've seen, I'm not saying that there aren't some that are like this, and you might have played with a few, but the best players I've seen love football. And if you love football, you want to keep doing it, you want to practice, you just can't, you got a ball at your feet all the time. If there's anything you're doing to stop them loving football, you are harming their chances of being a footballer. So we said this to our coaches, particularly the younger ages, right? You might give the best technical information ever. So we are living our values, what I'm saying to you as parents now. You might be the best technical coaches ever. You might understand the game inside out. But if they've joined us at 6 years of age and by 12 they don't want to play football anymore because they just don't enjoy it anymore, it makes no difference how good they are and what great information you've given them. They're not going to be footballers. They have to love playing football. So if there's anything you're doing to stop them doing that, stop doing it. That's my advice.
Well, you know what? I think that's a good place to say. That's a good place to end it. Do you know what I mean? But Nick, listen. I mean, it's been great to get to to speak to you, and it's been great to get to speak to you again after all these years. Tell Mickey T he's the top man for getting us back together again.
He's
Do
a
you know
top
what I
man.
mean?
He's a top
He's
man.
the top man. For people that don't know, Michael Thomas, he played for Liverpool, played for Arsenal as well. He's
Broke Liverpool's hearts, Jason.
yeah, he did back in the day. You know, you can go watch that on YouTube when he scored it. I think it was 89, wasn't it? 89, he
Yeah.
scored the winning goal against Liverpool at Anfield for Arsenal and then come and play for Liverpool. But yeah, no, appreciate your time, man. I think there's lots of information there. I'm sure that parents will really get the benefit from. And hopefully, who knows, in not too distant future, you might be able to come back on and give us some more pills of wisdom, Nick, if that's okay.
See you, mate, anytime.
You're the top man. Okay. Parents, and I'm sure you know if there's any questions that you want to ask, you can put that in the chat. I know it's going to be there, but you can get in contact with me anyway at Cayman FC. You get Jay Betford at Cayman FC .ky. You can get me on the email. You can get Ali there as well. You can get him. He's at Azo Soseri at caymanfc.ky. And I'm sure you can get onto our website or Instagram as well if you need any more information about our programs and our training. Our next webinar will be next week as well. We're lucky enough, and Nick will know this gentleman. We're lucky enough to have Steve Torpey on next week, who's the academy manager at Brentford FC, former head of coaching at Man City. And we'll have him on next week to give his insight in terms of youth development across the professional academies in England. Again, thanks a lot, Nick, and have a good night, mate. Hopefully we'll speak soon.
Cheers, Jason. Top man.
All right, all the
See you
best.
later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.